So,
Hey, bud. What's going on, man?
not much.
Oh, man, I just laid down for a minute and take like a little, just closed my eyes and I almost slept right through this.
That would sucked.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I would have, but I was just like, I woke up, it was 12:26. I'm like, I slept for 2 minutes, but it was just, you know how you start to fall off and it's like, you can get deep.
Yeah.
I felt like it was going to be a deep one. Did you get the note? You obviously got the notes I sent you because
It was in the link. Yeah.
you got this. So, yeah. What do you got going on the rest of the weekend?
As soon as we're done here, I'm driving over to Sam's house and we're hanging out at his pool.
In Richfield?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is he still living in the city?
No, he moved out after his surgery.
What kind of surgery? I didn't know he had surgery.
Yeah, Sam tore a bunch of stuff in his knee, tore like his ACL, his MCL.
How do you do that? Hey, John.
Hey
John.
guys, how's it going? Sorry, I just finished with a client.
No,
all
that's
good.
fine.
It's all good.
We just jumped on ourselves, man.
Ah, sweet deal. Perfect timing.
Yep. Ready to go. Let's get right into it.
How you been, buddy?
Doing really good.
Yeah. That's
I
awesome.
feel like I know COVID's been a bad thing, but I feel like it was a little bit of a good thing for me in the sense of I was overworking a little bit, too much, taken away from a lot of other things, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's funny. That's exactly what my brother says all the time. Jordan's like, you know, I know COVID's bad, but COVID was great for me. Like it does a lot. Like if you're able to like, you know, take it piece by piece and actually like get something out of the time you have, it's actually, you know, if you're not affected by the actual, you know, disease,
lose your job and things like that.
like you're not affected by the
Correct.
actual disease. It's kind of been great for a lot of people. I know a lot of people who've gone crazy, and I know a lot of people who are crushing it after this. And you know, I know I took at least one or two good steps during quarantine. Keep hoping to keep it going after.
Yeah, it's been good.
You know, it's crazy. I was to say my timing never matched up with you guys, but I go to the same track that you and Jordan go to, the Edgemont one.
Oh yeah. We went there we went there once or twice just because we kept getting kicked out of the ones in White Plains. There were people coming in and kicking us out, and every spot we went to, here, White Plains Middle School, everywhere someone comes up on a loudspeaker, tells us to get out. The cop, we're calling the cops. Cops are showing up, and then Jordan and I, we have our own lacrosse cage, so we have our own lacrosse net. And the guy's like, "Don't be stealing our nets," and we're like, "We brought this ourselves," like carrying like a full net over the fences as they're trying to like run out. So we went to the Edgemont one because it's all the way back behind. Like
there's no traffic for people to see.
Yeah, it's a parking lot. Then you walk over a hill, past grass fields, then you go down a hill, and it's just like a stadium. So no one was messing with anyone there. So it was great. We got a couple good workouts there.
Nice.
Yeah, so I know I look, it's Saturday on a holiday weekend. We all want to go do all this stuff. So let's get right into it and go enjoy our weekends. So John, you know, I definitely wanted to have you on because I think that you bring you know, you have your hands in so many things. So you can bring perspective from a lot of different areas as an athlete, as a trainer, as a coach, as a BJJ guy, as, you know, you have your hands in a lot of different areas. So I guess we'll just start talking about it. I think if we start with maybe, you know, your background as a high school wrestler and then leading to college, and you tell us a little bit how you got started with that and what that was like and what your goals and things were. That's great place to start. We can kind of start asking questions off of that.
I didn't actually start wrestling until high school. I heard about it in middle school. I'm not the biggest WWF fan, but I sort of almost thought it was like that, and I wanted to just check it out. I didn't know that we were allowed to, but in 7th grade, someone said that 7th graders weren't allowed to do it. So I waited until 8th grade, but I actually had surgery for hernia right around the same time that they started it. So I didn't get to start wrestling until high school. I didn't play any real organized sports. I sort of, you know, like kids meet up at the park and like a certain time of the year, it's just basketball every day or football at the park or soccer or whatever it is. So I was always active, always outside. So I developed a lot of that natural athleticism, I feel like. And then growing up in a little bit of a tough area, it was hard not to get in fights growing up. So I felt like that helped make me a little bit fearless. And wrestling for me was a form of fighting just without striking. And right after the first day, I fell in love with it. You know, I was not even 100 pounds in my freshman year in high school, and it was a few kids in the off season, and the first person I went against was almost 200 pounds, you know, throwing me around while I'm hanging on to his leg. And it was just like, I loved it.
Do you have, what's your sibling dynamic?
I have an older brother. He's 9 years older. So by the time we were 9 years old, he was 18 and he went the military route. So at that point, he moved on. I do have an older sister. She wasn't as into the sports. She's 6 years older, but I do have a twin brother. We tend to be good at all the sports, but good at opposite things. So like football, he was better when we were younger at receiving. I was better more with handoffs and things like that. He's 6'2" now. Oh, wow. And he's a lot taller than me. So he's more the basketball player. I got more into the wrestling aspect.
That pays off in the long run in the family fights, though.
Yep.
It's going to pay off.
So that was so freshman year you got started in it and you kind of took to it right away. You enjoyed it. And what was your high school career like? How did you did you quickly know that you were going to be successful at it, and did you know that this was kind of now in your blood and you wanted to continue it further on?
So it surprisingly, for just it being my first year, I started out really good. I didn't start out varsity. There was a junior on the team who was at the 103 weight class, but I was like 95 pounds. And so what was good about that is I got more matches than everybody. Everywhere we went, I got to wrestle the varsity guy and I got to wrestle their backup guys because I did a lot of matches at the end, scrimmages, and I used to do 2 or 3 matches in a row. And for me, it didn't matter. So as like a 95 pounder, I would wrestle guys from 103 all the way up to 135 and sometimes 3 matches in a row. And just because nobody would want to do it. And I was just like, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. So my freshman year, I was 47-4. And I had 10, I filled in for 10 varsity matches. I won all of those matches. Usually the kids that I had lost to were kids who were in a higher weight class and definitely much better. But it was like right away, I knew from that first day of practice, and I think a part of the way I grew up, I wasn't scared. I always made sure that I worked harder than everybody. So for me, when I got on the mat, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know their name, their credentials. If the kid was a state champ, I saw him as another person across from me, but he doesn't work as hard as me, you know? So when I went into that match, I looked at him as an equal, not as worse or better. And I always gave it 110% in the sense of going forward with the matches. Our coach was a football coach. He had only, by the time I started, been coaching the wrestling team for about 3 years. And so he definitely instilled us to be tough. And I can't tell you how many suicides we did at the end of practice. So conditioning wise, he's like, I don't care if you lose a match because someone's better. You're not going to lose a match because you're tired or you gas out. So he made us condition. He made us tough, which already fed into sort of the upbringing that I had. And because he didn't know a lot, we practiced the same stuff all the time. So I mastered the basics more so than somebody who likes to do the next fancy move,
Yeah.
I used to hate drilling in practice. I mean, in high school, but in college, I learned to enjoy practice. But because of that repetitiveness, it made me so much better,
Yeah.
So John, it sounds like a lot of your motivation was like like it was very intrinsic, right? Like you found this fire inside you right when you started wrestling, but you never really did any sports before that. So obviously, like learning how to train for a sport, learning how to learn a sport was kind of new to you with that fire. Was that like, how did you keep your mind focused on like setting goals to get better or how to learn something? Because you're kind of new to organized sports, let alone wrestling, but you have so much energy to do it. Like no one had to tell you to do that extra work because you seem fired up, ready to do it. What did you do to keep yourself like your personal motor? How did you keep your personal motor going to learn?
That's a good question. I never thought about it that way. After I answer that, I have a funny question about like when someone else is training you and things like that. I think I was always super, super competitive, and having a twin brother, that helps in that aspect because we're always competing with each other, whether it was a game of chess or basketball or whatever. My first big sport I saw on TV, gymnastics, and I can't tell you, my mindset when I saw gymnastics was like, I want to go to the Olympics for this. Obviously, we couldn't do gymnastics. It's an expensive sport, and I didn't have access to doing that. Then my dad, he used to be a karate instructor, and so we did karate. In my mind, when I started karate was like, I want to go to the Olympics. So I think part of it was just that natural competitiveness. I can't tell you a specific moment where it just clicked for me, but everything that I've done, I've always wanted to take it to the highest level. You know, they say shoot for the stars and you reach the moon type idea. Karate for me, United States karate, I feel like isn't like in the Asian cultures. For me, it wasn't serious enough. I wish they sort of maybe had like, if I got introduced to like kickboxing or Muay Thai, that was a little bit more serious. So I didn't continue with karate because I was this young kid and I would train with some of the black belts and I would see that they were scared of me and I was brand new. And it was because I had that fearless mindset and I was athletic and aggressive, not in a bad way. I wasn't trying to hurt anybody, but I could see that I'm like, this isn't the sport for me, you know? And whenever we did our activities outside, I always played with that intensity. Even if someone was better than me or I wasn't good at something, I still played with that intensity. So wrestling, that was it for me. The hard part to go about what you were saying when someone started training me, I remember the first run I ever did. I never like just ran a mile or 3 miles or whatever it was. Like I used to race my friends, but that was short distance, you know. It was in the middle of winter. We just had a snowstorm and we have a park that's like 1.5 miles circumference. And so when we ran around it, we did 3 laps. I can't tell you, I had like 3 pairs of socks on, boots. I had underwear, shorts, sweatpants, ski pants. I had like 3 t-shirts, a long sleeve shirt, sweatshirt, a jacket. Like it was crazy. I had so many layers on and the boots weren't even tight. So I'm like trying to run with boots that were loose. Each lap there was a library on the corner and I had to keep like taking layers off. It was my first experience running organized, you know, and learning that like less is more.
Yeah. Literally less is more in that case. Yeah.
Less is more with the clothes.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. That's funny. So, you know, it's funny, you know, we've known you for a long time and I've always known that you have a real self-confidence about yourself. And it sounds like you had that even the first day that you were doing karate or the first day that you were doing wrestling, you had that self-belief in yourself and, you know, you didn't have that fear. And I don't mean you didn't have that fear like you weren't afraid of anything, but you weren't afraid of failing, and you were just going to go forward and do what you had to do. And so is that accurate?
Yeah, definitely 100%. I would always challenge myself, you know, and I have a lot of friends who if we play a lot of sports, because I always take things serious, I think I would win most of the time, especially if it was like athletic things, you know?
Yeah.
I try not to compete with my friends in things that I know I'm better than them in. I try to, like, if I'm challenging them or messing with them, I want to challenge them to things that I know they're better than me in. And I always want to just make sure that I'm working harder. So usually in practice, so I didn't put pressure on anybody else, I would do it internally. So if I saw someone who was faster than me, I would make sure, you know, kids like in races would avoid the person who's faster so they can be the second fastest but win in the second group or third group. I put myself to that person, so I would train so that everything was a stepping stone for me. You know, I had to beat them. I had to make sure I did the most push-ups, or if I didn't, I had to make sure my push-ups were the best form. You know those kids in practice who are like getting 100 push-ups, but they're quarter repping them or whatever. So I would never make a big deal in that sense because they're hurting themselves. But for me, in my mind, I was like, it's going to make me better long term. And so I was always competing with somebody, even if they didn't know. You know, I always found that person who was better than me at something, and I made a point to work so that I could beat them at that, you know.
So you quickly realized, like, I mean, it seems like you quickly realize your ability to self-motivate yourself. Like, how did that change the way that you trained? It seems like I'm sitting here jealous, like, man, that's a freaking cheat code that, like, your brain is just like, yep, gotta get to that level. Yep. Gotta get to that level. Yep. Gotta get to that level. Like, how did that make your training and just like your lifestyle? I mean, you're a personal trainer now, so like you're always going for that next PR, right? That next level. Did that just kind of make everything easier after that? Like, you kind of was it easy to buy into your own sauce and just kind of be like, yeah, this is working for me, then just ride your own train like that?
Yeah, you know, it helped me to find outside sources to get better. Some of my friends who were bodybuilders at the time, I would go lifting with them and exercise so I could learn from them, so I could get stronger. The Lowell coach, do you guys know Lowell from Massachusetts?
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
They're one of the top they're the best in Mass as like a high school, and they're top contenders in New England. And their coach actually started the wrestling program at my high school. He was more used to a more well-developed program, so I don't know the details of it, but he ended up going back to Lowell, and that's why our coach took over. But because of that, and because he saw like my work ethic, he actually had reached out to me and invited us up. So if you know Massachusetts, Lowell is the top part of Massachusetts, north of Boston. I live in New Bedford, which is the complete south of Boston. 2 times a week, we would drive 2.5 hours to go practice for an hour and a half or 2 hours and come back. So I would learn from those guys. I started working in the summers to save up to go to camps. So I found outside sources to learn. So by my sophomore year of high school, I actually used to do a lot of the instruction. I would tell my coach, I was like, I learned this and this, and like, these are ways I learned how to do the moves that you cover. And so he would structure the practices, but I would teach the techniques. And so I got into teaching very fast. And I think because our practices were set up different, it was different, I think, because he was new. He always had an older guy with a younger guy, and during the live, it would just mix and match. So a part of me drilling, I was always also teaching. And they say when you teach something, you learn to master it better than when you're just learning it. Yeah. And so I think with me teaching more and using that motivation to get better from outside sources, it took to it. And when it comes to the exercise, I know bodybuilding isn't what is best for sports, and there's a lot of functional movements now and things like that. But when you're younger, getting bigger and stronger is going to make you better in a sense. But what was great about bodybuilding is people don't realize you learn a lot of exercises for the same muscle groups. So that was a good foundation for me now that I'm a personal trainer when I look back at that point, you know. So I was learning how my body worked, and just everything to make myself better and stronger for this sport, you know, because my mindset at that point too was like, I want to take this to the Olympics, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself with some of the questions I have for you, but an observation. So you really are the same person that you were then, because we've known you, and you are a passionate teacher. You love to teach. You're very good at it, but yet that competitive fire still burns. And an example, right? I mean, you and Travis have drilled together many times, and you know that you'll teach him everything you know. I've seen it with him. I've seen it with other kids that I've had come to you. You'll teach them everything you know, and then if they just get a little bit of success, the competitive fire comes out, and you got to put them in their place. And I love it.
Yeah.
That's John Marsh since day one, right? I mean, like, you always wanted to teach, you wanted to help people get better, and you had to remind them, I'm still a little better than you. And it's beautiful. That's your MO. So it's cool. So I didn't want to get too ahead of myself, but I had to make that observation because it's the consistency that you've had for, you know, the last 30 years or 25 years.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So when you went to college, obviously, you know, you went 4 years wrestling, and then you went to college, you want to keep wrestling. Did any of that change? Because obviously when you went to the college program, your coaches, I'm sure, were now teaching you a bit, right? You had new people to learn from, bigger team, starting from the bottom. Did any of that fire change, or were you just at an advantage because you have that easy click startup and you kind of were able to run over some people early on in college?
So same thing with my freshman year of high school was very similar for me with college. It was a little bit different. I was the first person in my family to go to college. I wasn't even thinking college at first. I was going to do my own construction business or even go the military route. And my junior and senior year were really good with wrestling in high school. And someone was like, you could wrestle in college. Like, no one ever talked to me about that. I had no idea. And I was like, I could wrestle in college. So I was like, I want to go D1. And I didn't know about visiting schools or things like that. So the first school that called me happened to be Slippery Rock University. And they were like, you know, we're interested in having you. And would you like to come? I said, yes. Like, just like that. They were like, well, when do you want to come see the school? And I was thinking, I can't afford to get out there. I don't know how I'm going to get out there. My parents weren't going to fly me out there or drive me out there with it being 10 hours away. So I just said yes, and that was it. I thought I could save money, so I actually didn't start the semester right away because I didn't have money for school and that. But I don't drink or smoke or anything like that, but I love to go out to eat and go to the movies. And I like paying for my friends with that stuff sometimes. So I actually never did save money. So I started the semester late, but I was coaching and training with the high school kids before going. Slippery Rock, they're a D2 school, but their wrestling program was D1, where it was north of Pittsburgh. We were right near Edinburgh. And so we had a lot of strong teams around us, but we were not a strong program in that sense. So when I went there, I was good enough to beat out the 25, the 33, the 41, 45 pounders, 49 pounders. My goal and thought was to compete at 141 or 149. What was best for the team was for me to cut to 133. But it was the same thing in college. I was actually surprised by it. A lot of the kids, they were partying, drinking, smoking, doing not good things, you know? So I wasn't much of a partier, so I didn't really hang out with them all the time. I made good friends with the captain, And so I hung out with him mostly, and we were like-minded. You know, we didn't do that stuff. The hard part for me, my freshman year, I had that success of being the best guy in the practice room because I always wanted to work hard, and I beat all those guys out for the spot. But I was 160 pounds. I had 5% body fat, and they made me cut to 133. I had never really had to cut weight before. I was always very active, very lean, and I would maybe not eat dinner the night before, you know, and I could make weight. I cut, it was like 25 pounds, but I didn't do it right. So in my match, whether I was trying to rush the win, whether I stalled, no matter what it was, I was more like a 500 wrestler my first year. I took third at our qualifiers for nationals, but it was tough because I didn't know if I could make weight 2 days in a row. It was so hard for me to get my weight down to there. I would only eat a small bowl of cereal in the morning. I would get Raisin Bran. I put skim milk. I had 1 banana, 1 bottle of water, and 1 power bar for the whole day. That's all I would eat, you know? So after a match or a tournament, I would eat and get my weight back up. I would gain that 25, 30 pounds like an idiot, but then I would have to go right back to cutting the whole week, you know? So I had a bad freshman experience. And then I ended up visiting home for Christmas break. And it was Christmas Day. I was driving home and a drunk driver swerved and drove head on into us. So it messed me up. I missed a year of wrestling. So I wrestled D1 for just 1 year. I was a 500 level wrestler there, but whenever I did off-season tournaments, if I competed at 141 or 149, I would win. So I do attribute a lot of that to not knowing how to cut weight properly, but going to a weight class that just wasn't meant for me. I was the biggest 33-pounder in the country. I just remember that work ethic I told you that nobody would outwork me. I couldn't do that. I went to college with 4 years of wrestling, so I'm not going to lie, those guys were so much better than me skill-wise, but I had that foundation, that basic, the basics down better, because that's all I drilled. I made sure that I worked harder than them, so I was stronger and more fit, but cutting that much was hard for me. And then to answer the other part of that question, I finally had a coach who was good enough for me, who I didn't surpass him after 1 year, you know? What was tough in college is it's not structured like high school. You don't have a time where you're learning and then drilling and learning and drilling live. It's like, it's live drilling. So I had to learn a lot on the go. So it was frustrating in my mind where like something like a snap down, which I think is so important, I hadn't learned how to really do a good snap down. And so I was doing it. I'm like thinking in my head, this is a stupid move. I'm never going to use it. And he made me practice it every single day. And I was so mad and frustrated, but whatever coach says goes. That was sort of how I grew up, you know. One day it just clicked. We took a small break, came back, and like I started snapping everybody down, getting that front headlock, you know. So all of my skill and technique definitely came in college. And I always tell people 1 year of college is more than 4 years of high school when it comes to skill and level and training and efficiency. So I did get all my skill and technique at the D1 level. Because of my weight cut, it was not the best experience for me. After I missed the year, I transferred to a school near my house that I could commute to, which happened to be D3. And then because I didn't cut the same kind of weight, I had a lot more success when it came to the college wrestling.
So did you start, like, once you got comfortable at the weight, right? You're in college wrestling, you got comfortable with the weight. Once you didn't have to worry about that part of it, right, where you're gassing yourself out, you're cutting weight, when you're able to be whole mind and body, what did your like goal setting look like? Like, how did you plan out your season? Because everything you say always ends with, I want to, go to the Olympics, or I want to be the champ, then I want to be the champ here, then I want to go to the Olympics. How did you lay out your plans? Because what we like to hear and helps a lot of our listeners is, that'd be a phone call from my mother. We're going to tell her that I'm on the call. Yeah.
No
So
way.
like I was saying, so it's great so for them to hear real broken down details of like, you know, where were you starting your goal setting? Where did you honestly believe it was going to go? How did you write it down? Where did you put it? Like stuff like that. Like, did you lay it out like that? Or was it just kind of, I'm John, I go, I'll win?
So I was never taught that thing that I hear a lot of people talking about by like writing your goals down. And yeah, they write it down every day. Kyle Dake has a book and every day he wrote in it, national champ, or whatever it was. But I did that in a different way without having to be told. Same thing with the exercise. I would plan out my workout program so far ahead that I was like, if I follow in this route, this is where I'll be 1 month from now. I used like in school and during class, I would obsess about where I would be if I did this. If something changed, if I beat a record sooner or I was a little bit behind, I readjusted the whole thing. And it was like every single day. So in college, because I was that into fitness, high school through, at that point, I knew how to program. I knew exercise well enough that I was in charge of our lifting program for our college wrestling team in the whole off season. So I did roofing and siding during the summer. So I stayed in shape with that and I lifted. That was my off season. That's when I did my heavy lifting. But as soon as school started, that was sort of like when my mind was like, okay, we got to get ready. I do believe in cross training, something like swimming and running, because it challenges your cardio, but doesn't beat you up the same way. So I used track workouts. Your body has 3 energy systems that it uses for fitness. So you got to find the one that fits your sport the best. Wrestlers, it's that second system with a little bit of both, but you're mostly in the second one, which deals with the lactic acid system.
What are those 3, John? Just educate us for a bit. What are those 3 systems?
The first system is your ATP system. That's the one your energy uses creatine phosphate to do like a 100-meter sprint or shot put throw or whatever it is. Guys who run 400s, a little bit more, and you have the lactic acid system. That's where, you know, you can jog forever. You can't run as long as you jog and you can't sprint as long. The lactic acid system is the next step. That's when your body's using carbohydrates. And then you have your oxidative system. And that's where, you know, the first 5 minutes, you feel like crap when you're running. And then you warm up and you're like, okay, I got this. Because your body's transitioning through those systems. And now your body's producing more ATP. And your body uses ATP as energy to contract and uncontract the muscles. So for wrestlers, you want that lactic threshold to be high. You guys know the max VO2 test?
I know.
Yes.
That's the one where you run and you have the mask.
Oh, yes.
Until you can't run anymore. Wrestlers, if you talk to people who test Olympic level athletes, they hate testing Olympic level wrestlers because you have cross country skiing, which records the highest level of max VO2. That's how well your body takes in and utilizes oxygen. Lance Armstrong, someone like him who's a marathon biker, has really high numbers. Marathon runners have high numbers. Wrestlers' numbers aren't quite as high, but what wrestlers have that they don't have is they have much higher, your body can, you know, people think lactic acid is the limited factor of your muscles working. It's actually not. It's just a byproduct and there's no oxygen, so it can't go in the oxidative system. It feels like it.
Yeah.
But your body can get better at taking that lactic acid to create more energy. So it's how fast you recover. That's what you want to think about as a wrestler. If we're wrestling and every time we go out of bounds and we come back in that 3 seconds, if I recover 30% every time and you recover 10% every time, the more little breaks we get by the end of the match, I'm going to be in much better condition and to be able to keep pushing my pace. And so what they don't like about testing those guys is they can take themselves beyond that anaerobic threshold. And that's the point where your body's it's burning more ATP than it's producing. So at that point, you're going to burn out. Wrestlers take themselves to the point where they're going to run until they fall off. They tell you to stop before you fall off, but most wrestlers run until they fall. You know, it's like, that's the lactic acid system that you want to work. And so what we had access to at our school was once in a while we could get the pool. So we did a pool workout. That's just hard on the whole body, you know. That wasn't working anything specific, but just to get out. What we would do there is I would team up with somebody. I would be in my lane and the other guy's in theirs. And the person would swim down and back and they'd have to get out and do 10 push-ups. And then I would rest the time it took them to get down and back. And while I start, they'd do their 10 push-ups. And we would do at least 10 rounds of that. If we built up to 20, we would do 100 to 200 push-ups. But the point of that was just to crush your cardio without beating yourself up in wrestling.
Physically, yeah.
So with the track workouts and the lifting, what we did in the off season is we would have like September, October, before the preseason started, we would have 2 nights a week where it was open mats. The coaches can't be there. So I would structure it with warm up. The warm up would be drilling and focusing on the techniques that these new high school kids coming in don't really know. So it would be catching them up and just live wrestling, having fun. It wasn't serious, but I structured it so it wasn't just guys coming in fooling around. But then we would do the track 3 times a week. The first 2 weeks, I always recommend for everybody because we're not runners, and I'm not trying to make us runners. We don't have to run as much to get the benefit of running, you know, as someone who is a runner. You know how like when you're level 1 in a game, it takes like 10 XP to get to the next level. But if you're level 100, it's 1,000,000 XP to get to the next. So it's the same thing with fitness. The more fit you are, the more it takes to get you to that next level, you know? I liked to get that baseline of
kind of
those.
why you always see a heavyweight the first week of the season lose 50 pounds and a 106 pounder lose nothing, because they have, when you're starting at that level, it's easier to get to the next level, right? It's easy for a guy who's got 200 excess pounds to lose weight because it's a simpler
Correct.
step, right? There's more freedom to do with it, right? Anything you do is going to be an exercise. When you get a guy who's got 5% body fat, the normal stuff feels like an exercise. So you have to do an extreme exercise in order to get to that next level.
Correct.
For those listening
with the
who
goal,
understand.
yes, correct. My bad. So with the goal setting for me, I was so focused on goal setting to make myself a better athlete with the exercise and drilling the techniques over and over that it led to my big goals, to wanting to have an undefeated season, to becoming an All-American, or trying to make it to the Olympic Training Center. I did it. I didn't do it where I looked at the end goal and went backwards. I did it the opposite way because I wasn't taught, but I was always like, you know, they say a goal without a plan is just a dream. It'll just be a dream forever.
Absolutely.
You need goals that get you there. So I happened to just do it backwards, that I had all these little goals. Are you guys still there?
Yep, you're good. You're good.
Yep, we're here.
I had all these little goals that led to the big one. A lot of people will take that big goal and go backwards. I wasn't taught then to do it that way. I didn't have that like mentor. I really wish I had. That's why I love to give to these kids, because I don't want them to struggle the way that I did in that sense. So with the run-in, to get that foundation, I did 3 workouts. It would be to hit each one. So the first 2 weeks, to get people in shape, 3 times a week, we just jogged 3 miles. It's a good foundation. After that, one workout was the first system. So it was mostly sprints with rest recovery. The second system, where you got to train yourself to recover while still moving, was sort of like a jog, run, sprint. Gary knows this one. I gave one of his guys a workout. It's my favorite one that I do on the treadmill for 1, losing weight, and 2, getting my conditioning through the roof. I would jog a lap at speed, for example, 7. I would do half of the next lap at speed 8 and then finish at 9. And I would go 7, 8, 9, 7, 8, 9. I got to a point where I could do that at 10, 11, 12, 10, 11, 12. Or I'd start low and keep building until I couldn't run anymore. So I would train myself to catch my breath running a 6-mile speed pace for 1 mile, which is fast, you know? Someone who's less fit, they might have to run an 8-minute pace to catch their breath. So you're challenging your system to get a lot better. And then I had that oxidative system where once a week we would just do a distance run. So that was our preseason track workouts. It would be a mix of those, assorted sprints, assorted fartlek training where you're jogging to recover. And then you have your distance run. We were wrestling 2 times a week. And then it was optional. The guys didn't want to do it. We had a lifting program. And by then I became more focused lifting as an athlete and not lifting as a bodybuilder. Mm-hmm. So the workouts I did in the off season were more meant for hypertrophy, getting the muscles bigger. And then as you get closer to the season, you transition. So I had one of my favorite workouts that I would do during the season because I wasn't looking to get stronger during the season. I just wanted to maintain the muscle I had and get my cardio through the roof, right. You know?
So John, you just gave us a lot of good stuff right there. I just want to jump back. Early you had said that you're the first kid in your family to go to college. And you also mentioned that, you didn't really have exposure or a real good understanding of what the college possibilities were. Like you didn't really know that kids go and they visit schools and, you didn't try to recruit, promote yourself to schools you wanted to. You didn't have that letter writing process that kids do. You didn't send a video with highlights, all those things, because you weren't exposed to that. And then you just recently said that you wish you had some of that stuff. And, the message here that we're trying to get out to the kids is, how to become an elite athlete. In our community that we live in, a lot of kids are predisposed to all that, right? I mean, their parents all graduated college. They're used to it. There's a lot of listeners who don't have that, who might have a similar background to you. Just talk a little bit about the importance that you realize now of, wow, if I had been exposed to that, if I had people to guide me, a little bit more. I mean, you were self-motivated. You're a self-learner as well. But if you had someone to guide you and kind of point you in the right directions earlier, maybe you were going to Penn State as opposed to, Slippery Rock, right? Maybe you had those opportunities and you had guidance. So just talk a little about what you see that benefit that might have been for you. If that makes sense.
So what ended up happening with me with college is I had a different coach every year. So when you have a different coach every year, they have their own different things and they don't know you. So they're trying to figure out where the team is. They're not progressing a team that they already know. Same thing with high school with my coach not knowing wrestling. He knew how to scout for colleges with football, but not wrestling. So I think that I could have had a much better scholarship. If people saw my highlights, I won states my senior year. I won sectional states. I made a lot of records. I did a lot of great things, but I did it in 1 year, where you have a lot of kids who they do it 4 years because they come into high school with that prior experience. They've already been wrestling for 10 years coming into high school, I think with that, and if I understood college, I would have chose a better college because my mindset at first was to go to college for wrestling and I was a student second. Mm-hmm. I would understand better now that being a student first is the smarter, better choice. Because of my mindset of go, 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 I ended up developing some injuries where if I had someone who explained, how sometimes kids, they get so mad if they get, like, say a kid in football gets hit and they have a concussion and they want to go back in the game, but a serious one, not just like, I think it's a little, people go too far with the concussions today, but I think it's better that we do have protocols for it, but they go back into the game or they're mad that they miss one match or this and that, and they push themselves through an injury that hurts them later for their long-term career. If you're thinking college and you're in middle school and you're tearing an ACL or a hamstring because you're overtraining, that's not a good thing. You're thinking that in this moment, everything matters right now. And we forget as adults how important something was to us when we're that young. And we'll tell the kids, it's not that big of a deal. I think we have to address that a little bit different, or sometimes be that bad person to tell them no, because it's going to be better for them long term. So for like me, I made it to the Olympic Training Center and I couldn't continue further because my neck nerve damage was too much, in the sense of my arm, the atrophied. Like if you compare your arms, one arm was 5 inches smaller than the other. And my neck was stuck for like 6 months down like this. And for 4 years, my fingers were numb, you know? So I didn't have that person to teach me what the importance is about long-term goals. I didn't have that person to teach me what overtraining was. There was a lot I've learned about overtraining because I've done it so many times. I've learned about lifting bad in good form because I didn't have anybody to teach me. I did it wrong and got hurt and learned to fix it, you know? So for me, I got the experience the hard way. For these guys, if they have that mentor where they can have that guidance, and I think being repetitive, kids will learn and they won't be so upset in those moments where they need to take a step back, or that mental toughness where they need to push harder. Or like I never taped any of my matches because I didn't know I could use them for highlight videos to send for colleges. You know, I think everything would have been a lot easier and better, and I would have had a lot more success. Even though I had a lot of success, I could have had a lot more.
Yeah. We're losing you a little, John. We're losing you, man.
Can you hear me?
Better right now.
Yeah.
You're breaking
okay, perfect.
A little bit. So, you know, we often talk to kids about success is not a talent game. It's a strategies game. And
yes,
and talking with you and talking with some other people we had on the podcast, you know, we had a wrestler who went to Colombia. He talked to us about like when he was a young kid, he had, you know, I think it was a guy from Travis, like Iran, like an Iranian national champion was his coach when he was like in 8th grade, right? Yeah. So he learned these strategies. He went to Wyoming Seminary in high school, right? So he had great coaches. So if you take that philosophy that success is not a talent game, it's a strategies game, but you couple it with great talent, you're going to have world class. And I feel like, you know, some of the advantages that you didn't have early on to try to figure out on your own was somewhat of a hindrance to, again, you had a great career, you've done some great things, but having those two things, having talent and having strategies is the key. And you seem that you had more talent and drive and motivation than really good strategies.
Correct.
Yeah.
What it did do for me though, is it's made me a much better coach. It took me some time in the transition of being an athlete and to becoming more of a coach, mm-hmm. to see that, because there was a time where I was definitely frustrated that I didn't live up to the potential that I have with wrestling. You know, being an All-American in college was awesome for me, but I didn't look at it positively for a long time because I was like, I know I could have been a national champ, and I know it's a shoulda, woulda, coulda, and I saw it the wrong way for a long time, you know? And so now I view it very different, and I see the benefits of it, and I know what I had access to and what I accomplished actually was a great thing, you know? And now obviously you guys know I've transitioned to BJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm having a lot of success because of my wrestling and dealing with injuries, making sure that I don't hurt myself while I progress through Jiu-Jitsu, you know?
Right. The other thing that, you know, that is important, and we talk to kids about too, and even in my professional career, I talk to people I work with all the time about this too, is, you know, one of the most important things that we have is, as Urban Meyer says, the R factor, right? How we respond to things. You've had some injury setbacks. You had a car accident that was a major injury setback. I know that you had a fire that burned down your home, right, when you were in college. If you could tell us a little bit about that, but there's another setback. But your response has always been positive and to move forward. So tell us a little about that, about the fire, and tell us a little about your mindset that's always been positive and moving forward and your response factor.
So I was actually at practice and my mom called me and she was crying. I didn't know what was up. And she's like, our house is on fire. And then she hung up. So I'm like, well, what can that mean?
Yeah. Is it literal? Is it literal?
Yeah. Yeah. And,
there's a great party going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't even, so it was like I was in the locker room before showering. So I just drove straight home and like, you don't know what to think. You don't know how little or big it is in those situations. You think the worst thing. And for me, it was material stuff. For my parents, it was their life, their home. They had more important things there. For me, it was mostly like clothes and like my medals and trophies and things like that. So it wasn't as bad for me. But when I did get home, like the whole house was on fire. So the whole thing did burn down. So my mom, I guess that was the best that she could get out.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you say that because you don't hear a lot of stories about people's houses burning down. But when I was in high school, a friend of mine, his house burned down, and the police officer for the school comes over at lunch. And he's like, "Hey, Mike, come over here and talk to us." And Mike, obviously looking over at a cop, being a young little punk freshman, is like, "No, I'm not going to go talk to you." And so eventually they get him to walk away. He comes back over to us. And he reaches down, grabs his backpack, and just goes, "My house is on fire. I'm leaving," and just walks away. And again, it's just
what I did.
It's the only thing that like goes to your head is like, you don't know how big or small it is. All you know is someone says my house is on fire, and you just have to leave. And unfortunately, like you, he showed up, and his entire house had burned down. And he was his family was a comfortable family, so it was probably 3 of your houses burning down. And it was one of those things. You looked at us and we were like, "What do you mean? My house is on fire. What do you mean? What do I mean?" It's one of those things you can't actually. And we actually have a friend of ours in the wrestling community who just went through the same thing. And the Schwartzfigers over at John Jay Cross River. Fortunately, they've been blessed by the community to have really great community spirit around them, and they've been taken care of in their area. But they went through the same thing. And again, we asked him what happened. He just goes, "My house burned down." Like, you don't hear anything else but that.
Yeah, that's seriously what I said to the team as I left, because I wanted to just get home. But that's all my mom told me too,
Yeah.
What was awesome is that the coach so much clothes, and one of my best friends today, Steve Lozon, I sort of was like a big brother figure to him. He was a freshman when I was a senior, and one of the kids tried to pick on him when he came to watch the matches. But when I wasn't a varsity player, I went to go watch the matches, to being a part of the team. And one of the seniors tried to make fun of him, so I stuck up for him, and we've been best friends since, And so
he's an MMA fighter now, right? Is he? Or that's his brother?
Oh, not that Steve Lozon.
Oh, okay. John, we're losing you pretty bad, buddy.
I thought they were in this that night.
We're losing you pretty bad for connectivity-wise.
1 second. Is that better?
Yeah.
That is better, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Are you heading to the gym?
No, I am going somewhere, Sally. Unfortunately, I apologize. I was hoping to beat it or afterwards.
Yeah, it says your bandwidth is low, so
Okay.
That's okay. We'll get through it.
We're almost wrapped up anyway.
Yeah.
I ended up staying I lived with their family for about 1.5 years, but my parents stayed for a couple of days until they made other arrangements. So I got a bunch of clothes from friends. And then I lived with their family for 1.5 years while I commuted to school. So I just lived in their basement. So I was like an extra roommate for them. So everything in that sense worked out. I never looked at it as a bad thing. I was more worried for my parents because for me, like I told you guys, it was just materialistic.
And for them, it was their whole life. Like my dad, like he owned the home, you know?
Yeah.
So obviously he had insurance, and it took a few years. Everything worked out, but I was more worried about them.
Yeah, there's also a lot of, the kids grew up in their house. There's a lot of emotions tied to it. So it's more than just a possession. It's, it means a lot. So yeah, that's a terrible setback for your family, but you overcame that. Go ahead, Travis.
I wanted to ask John to tell a different story, and I think it's a good one to kind of end on because it speaks entirely perfectly to who John is and where he is mentally as an athlete, as just a person, as just a gentleman. Can you tell us about the time you tried to challenge Kyle Dake to wrestle? Because arguably a top 10 wrestler in the world. And from what I hear, you just saw him in a gym and got so excited at the potential for the opportunity to maybe be able to wrestle with him for 5 minutes as a friendly roll around that you ran up to him and were just ready to go. And in your head thought, I can compete with that guy. I can take him down. So tell us that story and tell us your mindset, because I believe that you believe that you could beat him. So tell us that, because that is about as pure self-confidence as you can get.
That is very true. It's so funny, and it's an awesome story. You probably heard it a little different. My mindset, no matter what, is I'm going to win. Even if you beat me 99 times, that 100th time, my mindset is I'm going to get you. I don't go into it like, oh, I have nothing to lose. I'm winning the match before I'm in it. So I coach at Cornell Wrestling Camp. I've done it maybe like 5 times now. Usually I'll go with the Edgemont kids. And Kyle Dake was there as a guest. And I do believe watching college level wrestling, because I'm a lefty, there's a move, a takedown that I think that I can catch on anybody, because everybody falls for this trap. It's like my specialty, lefty sweep single. Kyle Dake does it. Jordan Burroughs does it. Every top level wrestler I watch, they all fall for the same thing, but nobody capitalizes on it. It's like, it's my move, And so I always see that and I'm like, man, I bet you I could get the first takedown. And so I took a picture with Kyle Lopes. And so I'm in a group text with Leo from the gym and their parents. And they're dogging on me so bad.
John,
I look small.
John, your connection.
Oh, let him go.
Wait, I don't want to miss the story, but I can edit that part out. So if you have a good connection, tell us the part from when you took a picture with him over. Start from that point on.
Perfect. Sorry about the connection.
No,
I can edit it.
I took a picture with him, and I'm in a group text with Leo Lopes from the gym. You guys know PJ Duke and Matthew Lopes. I coach them, so I'm in a group text with their parents, and it's a typical guys group chat. We shit talk with each other, trash talk. And I sent that picture to them to say, hey, look, I got to meet Kyle Dake. They trashed on me so hard. Like, you look small compared to him. He would take you down, blah, blah, blah. So I was defending my honor. And so they were like, if you were in a takedown competition with Dake, he could give you 9 takedowns and he'd still beat you to 10. So I was like, there's no way. If I was in a takedown with him, I would give him 9 and I would beat him to 10 takedowns, And so Leo screenshotted the image.
Oh man, we lost him.
I know. Yeah. We got nothing, John. We got nothing, bro.
On Facebook. So he sent it to him. And so he's like, I sent it to him. he told me he did, but I did it. And so the next separate building that they train at in Cornell. You hear me now?
Yeah.
Now we can.
No worries. Hold on 1 second.
We missed a bunch.
Can you? Okay, perfect. It depends where I am. If I turn the Wi-Fi on and off, depending where I am, it comes.
Yeah, we're not getting it. So,
Shit.
and it says your bandwidth is really low.
How about now?
I mean, yeah. If you want to just pull off to the side, we could pull up the road. We could finish this in 3 minutes. You got some good Wi-Fi. If you got some good service.
Say something, John. Can we hear you now? Let's see.
Can you pull in right here? Pulling into a spot right now. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
We're pulling into a parking lot. Okay. I
So
apologize.
where
did we leave off?
Give us from you're in a group chat with the guys. Everybody's busting your chops. Give us from that on.
So at that point, I started defending my honor and trash talking Kyle Dake, saying like how I would beat him, and I got exaggerated with it, but it was in a group text with my friends. In my mind, if I wrestle him, I'm gonna wrestle him with the intensity that I'm gonna win and get that first takedown. I take a lot of pride in my takedowns. I've set some records with that, especially in college. So for me, I'm like, if I can get the first takedown, it's a win for me, you know? Realistically, Kyle Dake should beat me. In my mind, I think otherwise. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, so Leo knows Kyle Dake on Facebook, and he screenshotted the picture and sends it to him. And so he told me he sent it to him, but I didn't believe him. I'm like, no way, no way. And I don't ever want to inconvenience somebody. So for me to go up to Kyle Dake to ask him to wrestle, just messing around a little bit or to like warm up with him was a big deal. And so the way he responded, I knew that he got the message from Leo. I walked up to him. I said, hey, Kyle, would you like to wrestle around a little bit? And he looked at me. He paused for a second and he started laughing. And he's like, absolutely not. And like, I know I'm not on his level, but I'm an All-American and I'm older. I'm not wrestling him to prove a point or get hurt or whatever, you know? So, but to him, I'm a nobody. He doesn't know me. And whenever I got hurt in wrestling, it was wrestling somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. So I took his response as he definitely read what Leo said, and I was so embarrassed by it. So nothing ever happened in that aspect, but Leo screenshotted that and sent it to him, and I didn't believe him until I was face-to-face with Kyle Dake. And like, I've always wanted to like send him a message or apologize to him in person, but I'm like, he probably doesn't even remember. And it's nothing for him, but I'm like so embarrassed by it.
Yeah,
you missed a great chance to test yourself too.
Yeah.
See where you stood.
Yeah, we heard that story. We didn't hear the whole story the way you told it, but Pete Jacobson from you coach with told us that story, and we had a good laugh on it. But I'm glad you confirmed it and gave us a little more of the detail.
I joke now that he's scared to wrestle me because he turned me down. So that's like my claim to fame.
Well,
I would never post anything like that. But
it's funny because like, whenever we hear this story about, and like anyone who knows you, John, like the thing that we're laughing most about isn't Kyle Dake's response. The thing that we're laughing most about is like, and fucking John thinks that he had a shot. Like that's what we laugh at. We laugh like, and John thinks that he can ball with him. Like John wholeheartedly believes he's gonna get the first takedown. And I would love to watch it because I've watched you wrestle and I've wrestled you, and you're weird and quirky and flexible enough to roll with anyone, right? Like you can always, like anyone who's flexible and athletic, you can scramble. So you get into a scramble, I'm confident that you will hold your own. But just to sitting there, just being like, yep, and John thinks he's gonna get a win.
Well, I think
it's so funny.
I think a couple of things. I think one, if we have a big enough audience with this podcast, you may get some calls from Dave
Reaching.
Burrows and other guys who say, this guy can take anybody down. Let's try him.
Let's
So
get Ben Askren.
Get prepared for that right now, Marsh.
Where's Ben Askren? We need Ben Askren.
Ben Askren, exactly, because he's my age.
Yeah, that's perfect. Perfect.
and the second thing I'll say is, we work so hard. John, you do, Travis, me, a lot of our listeners and coaches. We work so hard with our athletes to try to get them to have that self-confidence, to have that self-talk, to have that self-body language, to be positive, be confident that you have. And I'd much rather have a guy, because I know you, and you're not cocky, you're confident, and you know what I mean. So it's like you're polite, you respect people, you respect Kyle Dake's talent as much as anyone. You know what his game is like, but you have a self-confidence, and you just believe that if I had the same training, I had the same opportunities, I was doing the same things, I could roll with anyone. And that's something that you should be proud of, because we try to teach our kids that every single day. So I think we could probably wrap this call kind of on that high note. And just, again, I'm going to end it by saying this. We've known John for a long time. We trained with him. He's trained our kids. We worked with him. And you're one of the best clinicians I know. The success you're having now in BJJ is not a surprise to me at all. And I know you're enjoying it. And even starting at, you didn't start when you were 12 doing that. You started now in your 30s, right? I'm really getting into it. It's pretty amazing how you're doing with that. So just tell us a little bit about what you are doing there, and then we'll kind of wrap this up, and we'll all go on to a nice holiday weekend.
Sweet deal.
Final words to the listeners, John.
So because of my experience with wrestling, and not a lot of people are scared to lose in practice. They're too prideful to lose in practice. I'm okay losing in practice, and that's the reason why I win on the mat. So I'm learning jiu-jitsu faster. One, because I'm like a black belt when it comes to controlling people. Jiu-jitsu is just another form of grappling. It was just adjusting myself to not getting caught in submissions. And so there's a saying in jiu-jitsu, position before submission. And because I have that with the wrestling, I've focused my training on the areas where I'm strong. I don't want to learn the next cool move or the flash armbar or the flash triangle. These people want to learn something that looks good and showy, where I'm more about, I know my style. I'm a wrestler at heart. You're not going to change that. How can I use jiu-jitsu with my wrestling? And because I put my emphasis and focus on that, coupled with my mindset that I'm going to outwork everybody. I actually have a tournament that's like the Olympics for jiu-jitsu coming up. I'm just a purple belt now, but I'm going to be doing a tournament it's going to be a bracket, at least 120 people, and they're all black belts. I'm not going to beat them at leg locks. They've been doing leg locks for 20, 30 years, and they're black belts at it. I've been doing leg locks for 2 months, but I've been wrestling for 20 years. They've been wrestling for 0 years. So I need to beat them with my strengths. I need to take advantage of the positions. I may not submit them, but I can beat them with points and things like that. So I'm going into this tournament using all of my strengths and focusing on their weaknesses rather than trying to beat them at a game that I'll never beat them in. I'm not going to catch up 20 years of leg lock practice in 6 months, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of where my mindset is. And in practice, I'm not afraid to do something to lose, to get better. If it doesn't work, I'll do something new, and I'm not going to make that mistake in my match.
And practice is where you can make mistakes and you get better. And we talk to kids all the time about being vulnerable. Be vulnerable in practice. That's okay. It'll make you better for your matches. When's this tournament, John, and where is it?
It's going to be in New Jersey. It's November 7th. I don't know the exact location yet, but this one's going to be a big one. This one, every 2 years, they have this tournament. I don't know if you heard of it. It's called Abu Dhabi. It's ADCC.
Yeah, I've heard of
That's the big deal. That's like the Gracie brothers won that for years, That's the tournament I'm trying to qualify for, which is cool.
That's
super
awesome.
excited.
Good luck.
And like, we're in September now, so for me, I'm starting to train myself like I was when I was a college athlete, because I want to make sure if I lose, it's because they're better than me, not because I couldn't push myself.
You weren't prepared. Yeah.
I need to beat them with my conditioning and strength and my wrestling applied to jiu-jitsu.
That's awesome.
You're the man to do it.
All right, John. Well, best of luck, man. And, we'll talk to you soon. We'll be in touch with you. We'll keep an eye on what you're doing in BJJ. Best of luck. And thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Appreciate. One last thing I wanted to say.
Yeah.
I was actually excited for this part of it because I know you guys have that question, that one thing in your backpack.
Oh yeah. The badass bag. Oh, the one thing in the backpack. Yes.
So,
most interesting thing in your backpack.
So I was excited for this one because in high school, my number one thing is, you guys know the card game like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh? I played Magic the Gathering everywhere I went, whether it was a wrestling tournament, school, wherever. I had my deck, my Magic the Gathering cards. I can't tell you, I would be at a tournament and like find someone who had it and we'd be playing in between matches, So in high school, it was that. In college, if I was going to a tournament, the one thing that I had in my bag that I made sure I didn't lose is I had my own headgear. It was different than everybody else's. It was one you could wash. It was soft on my ears, but like that was my one thing. If someone messed with my headgear or if I couldn't find it, so I made sure that was in my bag where it couldn't be lost.
Yeah.
Right next to your Magic cards.
Well,
Right. In college, I didn't play it as much in that sense, but high school, it was the Magic the Gathering cards, and in college, my headgear.
well, you confirm the theory that most wrestlers are nerds. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but you confirm that. So again, that's great. Thanks for sharing that with us, and we'll talk to you soon, pal.
I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Okay.
John. Have a good
Be
weekend.
good, John.
You too. Bye.